Hey, what's up everybody? I just wanted to give an update to my last video. Last video found out that my TrueTrack display was completely dead, and I was looking at doing a complete avionics overhaul, somewhere in the range of like $8,000 to $10,000. So huge shout out to one of my friends back home, Ed Zarek. Ed used to work with me in EMS years ago, and he's a pilot as well. He's got a Piper, I believe it's a Lance, and he messaged me the night that I posted that video, and he was like, hey, I found a guy that's selling some TrueTrack stuff. Here's his number, give him a call. So I called the guy the very next morning, and so another shout out to Brian in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So Brian's got two sport cruisers, and one of them he actually just pulled out all of his TrueTrack stuff, two displays, engine module, and autopilot servos about a month ago, and he did a complete IFR upgrade on his panels. So he had just listed all of that stuff for sale maybe like a week before this happened. He sent it out that day. I got it about a week later, and I installed it. So installed the TrueTrack display. Turned out that things were a little bit worse than I had thought. So not only was my display dead, because at first I was thinking, hey, I'll have, an extra engine module, extra servos, all that kind of stuff if I ever need it in the future. Turned out that my engine module was dead. My autopilot servos were also dead. And so I ended up actually needing all of the stuff that he sent me. So swapped out the engine module, swapped out the servos, or I'm in the process of swapping those out, and then swapped out the display, and that stuff is all working now. Dug into it a little bit more, and it turned out that my audio panel was also dead, and then my Lightspeed headset that was plugged into the plane when the display went out was also dead. And I was thinking, like, how could you send enough power through an audio jack to ruin a headset? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. And it's like, well, I guess that was like one heck of an electrical event. And then started kind of digging into things a little bit more, because there's a ground wire on the right wheel, and it's just like a bike brake cable. Basically, it's like a thin steel wire that drags on the ground, and that was like all black and like mangled, and I was like, what the heck, like, this doesn't make sense. My right brake cable as well, so it's like a nylon hydraulic brake cable that runs next to the ground wire, had also, like, it had leaked all of the hydraulic fluid out of it, all the brake fluid. And then so my first thought is like, oh, the brake fluid leaked out, and so there was like some black marks down the main gear leg. I was like, oh, it must be, the brake fluid leaked out and kind of ate the paint away. And I'm sitting here one day, like maybe a couple days ago, I'm like, how do I piece all this together? And it finally dawned on me. I was like, the only thing that can explain all of this, and I'll never know for sure, but I'm pretty sure my plane was struck by lightning. It was, so I got back from my Florida trip on a Sunday, and it rained for like a day or two, and then I went to fly it back like 2 days later, and so not only was my display dead, when I went to like do my pre-flight, I walked around the plane and I grabbed the elevator and I grabbed the ailerons, and I was just like, move them, make sure that they're free. And they were really stiff. And I remember talking to my mechanic, and I was like, it doesn't make sense to me, like, why these feel so stiff. I mean, yeah, it rained. I mean, maybe they need to be greased. I don't know. And now, like, looking back at it, because the autopilot servos were fried and they barely move at all. Like, you've got to force them to try and move the control arm on them. And so, like, piecing all this together, I was like, I'll never know for sure, but for all of this stuff to happen at once and take out, like, half of my electronics, it's kind of the only way that I can explain it. I don't see anything on the plane at all of, like, where it would have hit. Like, I feel like you'd have an obvious mark somewhere on the top of the plane if it got struck by lightning, like you'd have a hole or something. I don't see anything. I've looked everywhere. Maybe my plane is by no means the biggest plane that's out on any ramp, and so maybe it hit the plane next to it and then jumped, and it jumped up that ground wire. I don't know, but so that's kind of where I'm at right now. So just working on like a couple last things that I got to get tied up, and I work a little bit. I'm going to be out of town this week, and then Thanksgiving and everything else. So anyway, kind of a big revelation, but I think I should be up and flying in, like, hopefully within the next 3 weeks. And I mean, I've checked everything, so I'm lucky. My GPS still works, my radio still works, my transponder still works, the other display, my backup instruments, my lights all work, the strobe lights, like you name it, everything else. So it was just like half the electronics. And I know I joked about this before because I was mad at Lightspeed because they wouldn't send me the box, but that battery box, but now I have to ship my headset to Lightspeed to have them repair it because it got struck by lightning. So that is getting shipped off in the next day or two, and hopefully get that back in a couple week turnaround and get this thing up and flying again. So I'm gonna have somebody take a look at it and obviously like give it a once over and make sure that everything looks good. But I've checked everything, and I don't see anything else wrong with it. So we'll see what kind of pops up after I take it for a quick flight and make sure everything looks good. But yeah, so that's the update for right now. Hopefully the next video that I post will be me going for a flight somewhere. So we'll keep you updated a little bit more. Till next time, see ya.